Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because today's story is one of those genuinely heartwarming moments that reminds you why this fandom, and honestly the music industry in general, can be such a beautiful place sometimes. And if you're a regular, you know I don't bring you a video unless it's something worth talking about. Today we're diving into a moment that happened backstage during the London stop of Jimin's world tour, involving an American artist, a personal invitation, a surprise gift, and a reaction online that has left fans absolutely emotional. Let's get into it. So let's start with the setup, because context is everything with a story like this. Jimin has been in the middle of his massive world tour, and one of the most anticipated stops on that run was London, a city with an incredibly passionate, incredibly loud fanbase that has shown up for BTS and its individual members time and time again over the years. Tour stops like this always come with a certain kind of magic, but every once in a while, something happens around the edges of the show itself that ends up becoming just as big a story as the concert. This time, that something involved an American artist named Sekou. Now, if you're not familiar with him, Sekou is a singer who's been building a name for himself in the American music scene, known for his soulful voice and his own distinct sense of style. He's someone with a genuine, dedicated following of his own, someone who has spent years working to carve out his place in the industry. And recently, he found himself in a situation that a lot of artists dream about but very few actually experience, an invitation from Jimin himself to attend his show live in London. Now, when I say invitation, I don't mean a generic press pass or a seat pulled from a media allocation list. This was described as a personal invite, something that came directly from Jimin, and it's exactly that personal touch that makes this whole story hit so differently. In an industry where invitations to major events often get filtered through layers of management, publicists, and label representatives, a direct, personal gesture like this carries a completely different kind of weight. It signals genuine respect, genuine appreciation, one artist reaching out to another simply because he wanted to share the experience with him. Sekou didn't stay quiet about it either. Shortly after the show, he shared a heartfelt post reflecting on the experience, and it's honestly the kind of message that makes you smile the moment you read it. He expressed his gratitude for being invited, describing the show as one of the best concert experiences he had ever witnessed. Think about that for a second. This is someone who works in music professionally, someone who has almost certainly attended countless concerts and performances throughout his career and personal life, and he singled this particular show out as one of the best he had ever seen. That's not a small compliment. That's the kind of praise that carries real credibility, because it's coming from someone who has a genuine frame of reference for what makes a performance special. But the story didn't stop at just attending the show. Alongside his message, Sekou shared that he had also received a gift from Jimin, and he expressed genuine excitement about it, saying he couldn't wait to actually wear it. There's something incredibly sweet about that detail. It's such a simple, human gesture, giving someone a gift, but in the context of two artists from completely different corners of the music world crossing paths, it takes on a much bigger meaning. It's not about the material value of whatever the gift actually was, it's about the thoughtfulness behind the act itself. The fact that Jimin took the time to do something personal and considerate for someone he'd invited into his world for the night. And then came the part of his message that really seemed to resonate with fans the most, his words of thanks directed specifically at Jimin for his kindness and for taking the time to genuinely appreciate his music. He went on to describe himself as a big fan, which, if you think about it, flips the typical dynamic of a story like this on its head in a really lovely way. Here you have a working musician, someone with his own catalog, his own artistry, his own fanbase, openly expressing admiration for Jimin, not just as a fellow artist extending a professional courtesy, but as someone who genuinely looks up to him and enjoys his work. That mutual respect is really the heart of why this story spread the way it did. It's easy to assume that once someone reaches a certain level of fame, admiration only flows in one direction, fans looking up at the artist, other artists occasionally offering polite, career-appropriate compliments in interviews. But this felt different. This felt like two people who happened to be public figures simply appreciating each other's craft in a very sincere, very unguarded way. And that kind of authenticity is exactly the kind of thing that cuts through the noise online and turns into a genuinely viral moment. Let's talk about the photo itself for a second, because visually, it told its own story before you even read a single word of the caption. The image showed Jimin and Sekou sitting together on a couch backstage, clearly mid-conversation, completely relaxed, completely at ease with each other. Jimin was dressed in his signature bold, edgy performance style, dark tones, distressed textures, heavy boots, the kind of look that has become closely associated with this specific era of his tour. Sekou, meanwhile, brought his own distinct sense of style into the frame, a varsity-style jacket, relaxed denim, a big, natural head of curls framing his face. Two completely different aesthetics, two completely different corners of the music industry, sitting side by side, clearly comfortable, clearly enjoying each other's company. There's something genuinely charming about seeing that kind of easy chemistry between two artists who, on paper, come from very different worlds. It's a small reminder that at the end of the day, artists are just people who share a common love for music and performance, and sometimes that shared passion is enough to bridge what might otherwise seem like an unlikely pairing. You don't need matching genres or matching backgrounds to connect with someone, sometimes all it takes is mutual respect and a shared understanding of what it means to pour yourself into your art. Now, let's talk about the online reaction, because honestly, this is where the story really took off. Within a short amount of time of that post going up, the numbers exploded. We're talking well over 100,000 likes, thousands of comments, and an overwhelming wave of shares as fans from both artists' respective fanbases collided in the comment section, all sharing in the same wave of excitement. Fans commented with pure joy, plenty of heart emojis, plenty of comments simply expressing how wholesome the whole exchange felt. There's a very specific kind of comment section energy that shows up when something is genuinely sweet rather than dramatic or controversial, and that's exactly what unfolded here. A lot of ARMY, the dedicated BTS fanbase, expressed how proud they felt seeing Jimin extend this kind of kindness to a fellow artist. It's one thing to watch him deliver an incredible performance on stage, that's expected at this point, he's built an entire career on exactly that kind of consistency. But it's another thing entirely to see a personal, human side of him show up in these quieter, backstage moments, the kind of thing that doesn't get captured by cameras during the actual show, the kind of thing that only comes out because someone chose to share it publicly afterward. At the same time, fans of Sekou's who might not have been deeply familiar with BTS or with Jimin's individual career got a front row seat to just how much love and respect exists around him, seeing firsthand the kind of reputation and reception he's built for himself both as a performer and as a person. Moments like this have a wonderful way of introducing fanbases to each other, creating this little ripple effect where people start exploring an artist's music simply because of the goodwill generated by a single, genuine interaction like this one. Let's take a moment to appreciate just how significant these kinds of cross-genre, cross-industry connections can be in the bigger picture. The modern music landscape is more interconnected than it's ever been. Genre lines that used to feel rigid and clearly defined have become increasingly blurred, and artists from completely different backgrounds are finding more and more opportunities to cross paths, collaborate, and support each other publicly. Moments like this one between Jimin and Sekou are a small but meaningful example of that larger trend, a reminder that genuine artistic appreciation doesn't need to be confined within neat little genre boxes. It's also worth noting how much this kind of moment reflects positively on Jimin specifically, in terms of the reputation he's built for himself throughout his career. He's someone who has consistently been described, both by fans and by people within the industry, as remarkably humble and consistently generous with his time and attention, especially toward other artists. Stories like this one aren't isolated incidents, they tend to fit into a broader, ongoing pattern of him showing up for people in quiet, meaningful ways that don't always get the same spotlight as his massive onstage performances, but which arguably say even more about who he actually is as a person. And that's honestly part of why moments like this resonate so deeply with fans. It's easy to admire someone for their talent, their stage presence, their work ethic, all the visible, easily quantifiable things that make someone successful. But it's the quieter moments, the personal invitations, the thoughtful gifts, the genuine words of appreciation shared backstage away from the cameras, that really build a lasting emotional connection between a public figure and the people who support them. Fans don't just want to admire someone's talent from a distance, they want to feel like the person behind the talent is someone genuinely worth admiring as a human being too. And moments like this one provide exactly that kind of reassurance. Let's also talk a little bit about Sekou's side of this story, because I think it's worth giving him his own moment in the spotlight here too. Being personally invited to a show of this magnitude, by an artist as globally recognized as Jimin, is a genuinely huge moment in anyone's career, no matter how established they already are. It's a signal of recognition, a signal that your work is being seen and appreciated by people operating at the very highest levels of the industry. For an artist who's still building and growing his own platform, having a moment like this shared publicly, with all the visibility and goodwill that comes with it, can be an incredibly meaningful boost, both professionally and personally. And the way he chose to talk about the experience afterward says a lot about him too. Rather than downplaying the moment or treating it as just another industry event to check off, he leaned fully into how much it meant to him, expressing genuine gratitude, genuine excitement, and genuine admiration in return. That kind of openness and sincerity is exactly what turned this into the kind of story people wanted to share, rather than just another quiet backstage photo that quietly faded into the algorithm. Now, stepping back from the specifics of this one moment, I think there's something bigger worth reflecting on here, which is just how powerful genuine, unscripted human connection can be, especially in an industry that so often feels calculated, curated, and filtered through publicists and marketing strategies. This wasn't a joint press release. This wasn't a planned collaboration announcement. This was simply one artist inviting another to share in an experience, followed by a heartfelt, personal thank you shared afterward. There's a purity to that kind of exchange that's honestly kind of rare to witness in an industry that so often prioritizes optics over authenticity. It's also a nice reminder of the emotional weight that live music still carries, even in an era where so much of our media consumption happens through screens and algorithms. Sekou didn't just call the show good, he called it one of the best he had ever seen, live, in person, experiencing the full weight of the performance the way it was meant to be experienced. That's a testament to just how much care and energy Jimin and his team clearly put into these tour stops, creating something powerful enough to leave a lasting impression on someone who has likely witnessed more live performances than most of us ever will in our lifetimes. Let's also touch on the gift itself for a moment, even though we don't know every exact detail about what it was. The excitement in Sekou's reaction, specifically mentioning that he couldn't wait to wear it, tells us it was almost certainly something personal, something tied to fashion or style rather than just a generic branded item you might hand out at any industry event. That detail fits perfectly with what we already know about Jimin's deep, ongoing relationship with fashion and personal style, something that's become such a defining part of his public identity over the past several years. A thoughtful, wearable gift like that feels like exactly the kind of gesture someone with that sensibility would choose, something with genuine meaning behind it rather than just an obligatory parting gift. I also want to point out how this story reflects really well on the broader culture that exists within BTS and the ARMY fanbase as a whole. Time and time again, we see moments like this circulate, stories of members going out of their way to support other artists, to build genuine friendships across the industry, to use their platform not just to elevate themselves but to shine a light on people they genuinely admire. It's part of a much larger, ongoing pattern of generosity and community building that has become such a defining trait of this group, both individually and collectively, throughout their entire career. And I think that's ultimately why stories like this one continue to do so well online, even in a media landscape absolutely flooded with content competing for attention every single day. People are drawn to authenticity. People are drawn to kindness. People are drawn to stories that remind them that even amid all the spectacle, all the massive stadiums, all the overwhelming scale of a world tour, there's still room for small, genuine, human moments of connection between two people who simply respect each other's work. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Were you familiar with Sekou before this story, or did this moment introduce you to his music for the first time? And what do you think about moments like this, artists reaching across genres and industries to support each other in such a personal, genuine way? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. I read every single one, and I always love seeing the different perspectives you all bring to stories like this. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update, because if this tour has shown us anything so far, it's that there's always another heartwarming moment just around the corner. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, take care of yourselves. Bye!